We're talking about nursing, healthcare, leadership, recovery, and senior living. The show brings the best in the industry to you because it's about you. I'm Angie Graham, and we're talking about it. Leadership, we're talking about it today. I'm Angie Graham, and I'm here with Stephanie Freiboth, the CEO of My Empowered Career. Welcome to the show, Stephanie. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me.
So you were a presenter at the Wisconsin Assisted Living Association this year, and that's how we got connected. So tell me a little bit about your company and what you specialize in.
Absolutely. So I am really still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, which is so rewarding. It's how I got into the work that I do today. So My Empowered Career is an organization that is built on one-on-one career coaching to help individuals find ridiculously rewarding careers at any season of life, but also to help organizations retain those individuals who work so hard to find work they love.
Okay. And how did you get started in this business?
I grew up in a family that was entrepreneurial. My dad owned a painting contracting business for my entire life growing up. And I knew that I had this spirit about me that was very creative, but I found myself in doing what I thought I should do growing up. So I got a degree. I got the job that I wanted. I actually had a job that was lined up a year before I graduated college, and I did all of the things, and I just felt like something was missing. So the more I got involved in leadership and developing teams, I recognized that there was a pretty significant gap for individuals outside of their organization. And so I made this giant leap of faith to say, how do I help more people find jobs that they really, really love? And it was moving outside of the corporate environment that allowed me to help more people.
Okay. So you do your company, you guys do coaching. Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah. So it's coaching and leadership development, but we also work very deeply in succession planning, data-driven succession planning. Okay. So one of the largest gaps that I saw was that generally when someone gets hired, they're hired based on, we interview, right? We interview and we find out their entire background, but then they get the job. And now I'm Stephanie, the sourcing manager. I'm Stephanie, the HR manager. And everyone loses sight of where that person has been. And when you lose sight of where they've been, you lose sight of some really great problem-solving experiences that you should be bringing forward organizationally to help solve problems within your organizations. And so that data-driven succession planning creates development plans that allows for organizations to see where people have been, honor where they've been, and bring that information and all that experience forward.
Wow, that's really great. So did you start out coaching one-on-one?
I did. Yes, okay. I did. So I started coaching one-on-one and then slowly realized as I got involved in my community a little bit more, getting involved with our Chamber of Commerce, about the additional needs that there were. And it's not for lack of trying. Organizations are developing their leaders all of the time, but it's really finding the right people, the right coaches, and the right mentors outside of the organization so that people can perform really well inside their organizations.
Okay.
So it's kind of getting that third-party insight. And one of the principles that I live by is that if you can find mentors and people who you can practice the things that you're struggling with most or problem solve, then you can bring your best self to the table when it's time.
Okay. So as a woman leader, what are the biggest challenges for women leaders today? Because I know from experience, 10 years ago to today, things change.
Absolutely.
So what do you find is some of the big challenges for women in leadership today?
One of the challenges that I think is really important to call out is this whole concept of emotional intelligence. And we talk about bringing ourselves authentically to work, But there's a difference between bringing yourself authentically to work and just being who you are, whether you're really outspoken or you're really quiet or whatever traits you bring to the table, but being able to step into understanding the people around you and controlling those emotions at work and controlling the narrative that you see in front of you. When I think about it, I think about the best leaders that I've had. There's a striking difference in how they de-escalated when I was really fierce and fiery about something. They were able to meet me where I was at and then de-escalate that situation with me. And so I find that women in leadership, we definitely need to understand where are our strengths. Where are we emotionally intelligent? Where might we be lacking or having an emotional response to something that we could? I'm not saying don't be emotional. I'm not saying don't get excited or frustrated or worried, but really learning how to the skills to hone that in and to control that a little bit.
I totally agree with that. As a woman in leadership, we are women in general emotional beings, and that can either work for us or against us. And what I often see with women that are new or just starting out is they take things very personally. And this is business. Don't take it personally. Take it constructively, and learning where to control that emotion or you can use it in such beneficial ways, but then there's also times you've got to harness it some and hold it back. So that is a bit of I think, you don't just have that. You have to learn how to harness the sides of your emotions that benefit you in the leadership role, and then the sides of your emotions that you need to quiet at times as a leader.
Would you consider that executive presence from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it's about knowing how to conduct you. So I've been a leader a long time, and when I first came into leadership, I thought I had to be like a man in a way, like how a man leads. But there's really it's a different art for a female leader. Men can be extremely straightforward, and that's acceptable. Women that are extremely straightforward, you're bossy and overpowering. So it is about learning the approach of how you get the best response. And I think that is part of that executive leadership, or you're building your presence and knowing how to conduct yourself as a leader. And it comes with making a lot of mistakes.
It does. It does.
And I see women that are so incredibly talented, but that's the other part of their personality or the emotions, that criticism that you have to go through to build those skills, they'll just quit. They don't want to. They go to that feeling of, I don't feel like I'm good enough, or I can't do this. And you got to fight through those times where you're struggling with your leadership. And that's when you say, what did I learn from this? And you have to have that inner conversation of, I'm not going to internalize that as who I am as a leader. I'm going to take that. This was a difficult lesson to learn, but I'm going to be something better from it.
Yes.
And we're, from personal experience, I'm a ruminator too, and I had to learn that it did me no good to go home and not be able to sleep or dream about work.
Yes.
Because I'm still in that. I'm still thinking about what I said, and maybe I could have said it differently. And did that person take it correctly? It's done. It is done. That's what your follow-up conversations are for, to make sure that they understand where you're coming from. But there's many skill sets, and I love working with talent, people that are new, and you can see it developing, and you see them over time just become better and better. I love that. But it is so important to get feedback. And if you can't take the criticism, you're kind of dead in the water. That's my experience.
I think there's a level of vulnerability that is, you get wiser over time. So early in my career, I think that vulnerability was very hard for me, because I felt like the more I would say that I didn't know something or wasn't good at something, I might be judged for that. And it depends on the type of organization that you work for. For me, we were judged right out of the gate. You were either good or not good. You either knew your numbers or you didn't know your numbers. And it was generally under the guise of we want to help you grow and learn. But had I had a leader who said, walk with me, I've got you, we're going to do this, we're going to fall together, we're going to grow together, I think I would have grown in my vulnerability sooner in my career. Now I hit that give a damn button and I'm like, oh, I have to share this wisdom, or I have to make these mistakes, or I'm not going to grow, or I'm not going to help other people. But that vulnerability is such a hard place to be without the right mentors around you to pick you back up.
Right. And I think you do have to evaluate if you're in the right place for growth.
True.
Not everyone, you can see potential, or people can have potential, but you have to be in the right mindset, the right place, the right time for growth. And I think back at, my personal journey, and there was times I just wasn't quite ready. And I see that happen to people too. And it can be distractions in their personal life. It can be things that you don't even know what's going on, and they're just not ready. Or the responsibility scares them.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You hit on something that was really interesting to me, and it's really around those seasons of life that happen to us. It's fascinating how, as women, we're in it, and we slowly creep into motherhood, or we creep into, I call myself the sandwich generation. So I'm caring for aging parents, and I'm also caring for very young children. And so how I operate, my patience, my time, my energy, all of it is different. And I have to flit in and out of these conversations with different people. And I think those seasons oftentimes put a damper on where we think we're supposed to be. So if I have kids, it doesn't mean that I have to completely stop my career, but I might take an intentional pause.
Right.
And for a very clear example, one of my biggest joys is getting my kids on the bus in the morning and getting them off the bus. And I will stop at almost nothing to make that happen. And in my old life, like early on in my career, I would have begged for someone to please, explaining why I needed that time and where I needed to be. Now I just say, I'm available at X time. And the lack of resistance is fascinating to me, because I'm assuming there's going to be resistance, but there's not. So operating in those seasons of life, I think understanding where we are, why we're here, what do we really want, and let that be okay.
Yeah, I really respect that you know and you make a schedule around that, because I've already raised my kids. I was a young mom, but during that time being a young mom, I made a lot of decisions based on the kids and being there for them. And I took jobs that I didn't necessarily want to work, but it worked for my family.
Sure. Yeah.
And I definitely, when I see working moms, respect to them, because I know what that is. And when you are doing that, there's that pressure of, you feel like you have to be able to do it all.
Yes.
And there's a place and a time. Maybe it's just not your time yet, and you need to focus on your family. For me, it was, my kids were almost grown, and then I really took off and built a career. They were in high school. My youngest son had a few years left in high school, and then I really started pursuing a career because I had that time.
Yeah.
And I had the mental capacity to do it then also, because I knew things were, I thought, I'm not going to get stuck being an empty nester. I'm getting out there and I'm doing things.
Yes.
And I'm going to pursue the things that I didn't have an opportunity, or just didn't take the opportunity at that time.
Right.
So,
and it doesn't define who you are. It doesn't define how successful you are. Success is really what we make it. And I think now, even more so with social media and some of the other things that are around us, we're so bombarded with everyone else's success. And that is exhausting.
True.
So I feel like, as a woman and as a coach, one of my biggest responsibilities is to meet people in that place and give them a safe space to say, do you? Right. Unapologetically do you and be happy about it.
Absolutely. And the more balance you have. They talk about that work-life balance, but there's a lot of truth to that. The more balance you have in your life, the happier you are.
Yes.
And you're in control of that.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens often is we get on this hamster wheel and then we lose control.
Yes.
And then you're out of balance
Mm-hmm.
because you really don't know what you're chasing anymore.
If we can go there, I want to go there because what you're chasing is so important. I would love your perspective on this, but the more and more people that I coach, female or male, I find that they're chasing a title or they're chasing money, not what it is that they really want or the impact that they want to have, and then working backwards, because that's harder. It's sometimes harder to quantify those things. Mm-hmm. So I'd be curious if you're seeing something similar in leaders in general, not just within your organization, but just in general, that same concept.
I think some people, for me, the success or what drove me was the success. It wasn't the money. It was the success. It was overcoming some odds, overcoming the negative people in my life who, you can't do those things, or you'll never be that, or you'll never be this. And I just wanted to desperately overcome those challenges. I was the person that I'm going to set out and prove that I can do what I want to set out to do. Yeah. But what was interesting that happened to me along the way was that once I made it, so to speak, I was like, well, now what?
Oh, you've arrived. Where's the confetti and the balloons?
I had to really think about what to do with it. Yeah. And granted, the role is always challenging, and there's always new things that come up, and there's ways to continue to challenge myself. But then I was really looking for the purpose in it. Why, then you wake up one day and you're like, well, I've done this, but why am I doing this? Because this is crazy. It's a lot of responsibility. Yes. It's 600 employees. It's all these, what was I thinking? And then you realize, but that's what life is it's always the next thing.
Yeah.
And so for me, the journey was, once I have gotten here, what am I going to do with it? And I wanted to impact others. And that was, I wanted to be able to use what I have built to impact others. And that's where I got involved with a nonprofit and because I had the ability to impact others. Mm-hmm. That's now how I measure my success, whether I'm impacting others at work or I'm impacting others through the charity. As long as I'm impacting others, that fulfills me.
That's
and
amazing.
It's not so much about me and what I do. Yeah. It's more about the impact I can have, which is part of why we do a podcast, is still trying to impact others. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I feel like I've got so much to learn every time I'm sitting across from someone, especially because you've gone through so much. I think the inspiration for everyone listening too is you have two women, different places in their career. I'm starting my entrepreneurial journey. We're 5 years in. You have gotten to a place where you love what you do and you're transitioning to that place of just, how do I serve differently? What is your legacy, right? So you're in that legacy phase, and I'm still building. And in the same vein, all of the themes remain the same. It's finding out your true self, understanding that you can make an impact no matter what your title or what your compensation or where you are in the grand scheme of things. And I just find that so refreshing because, gosh, it just feels good to be able to sit back and sit next to someone else who's like, okay, I can do that too. It's possible. All things are possible, and we can continue to renew ourselves. And I just love that.
Right. Yeah, I think that, we have a lot of women in our industry because it's healthcare. And being in assisted living, it's just more natural for women to be caregivers.
Mm-hmm.
And even in those leadership roles, they have to be compassionate with residents and families. And there's all kinds of emotions that they're dealing with because you've got family dynamics.
Mm-hmm.
You've got family members that don't get along, and you're taking care of mom, and now you're navigating, in some instances, I truly am amazed by what our directors do, because they're like counselors at times. They're trying to get families together in the same room, and they're asking residents, what do you really want? And it's so often that this resident wants their family together. They want to go out for a family meal, and you find out the family hasn't sat at a table in 25 years together. And that's not always the case, but,
Sure.
We do run into this where their job is not only about taking care of all these individuals, but bringing people together. And so we're really in the people business, and it's important work because you're taking care of someone's most precious, their loved ones.
Yeah.
And so our best directors that we have, they are very emotionally connected with the people around them, and they do know how to balance the accountability and still the aspects of the things that they know they have to get done.
Right.
But they're very good listeners, I would say.
That is a skill that I will tell you I'm perfecting every day.
I think you work on it your whole life.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know if you can ever perfect it.
Well,
Listening.
I know. Well, we're listening to respond, not necessarily listening to learn. So It depends on the situation we're in. Absolutely.
Because if you think about how you hear things now versus how you heard things even 5 years ago,
it's totally different.
it's a skill.
It is a skill. And I think it comes with the wisdom of experiences. And as we have experiences, in my career, I found that when I'm able to fall down and get back up again, and I process that, is way better when I fall down and get back up and fall down and get back up and fall down and get back up and don't process it. So whether people are journaling or talking to their mentor about it or their boss about it, that's where the magic happens, is in actually verbalizing what didn't go well, what do I need to do better? Because otherwise we're just continuing to make the same mistakes and then ruminating, as you mentioned. And now there's no commute for many people. So I don't have my morning, 20-minute commute to decide what I'm going to say, and my commute home to decide what I should have said.
Yeah, the working remote thing, I'm not sure if it's a good thing yet or a bad thing. I find that if I don't get to interact with some people, after a while, I'm way too in my head.
Mm-hmm.
I need that. And yeah, you can do that to a certain extent if you're working remote, but there's something about coming in and walking by someone and saying, good morning, and how are you today, and how was your weekend?
Mm-hmm.
There's just something about that connection to people. But I like to be connected to people.
Yes, I do too.
And so the working remotely, and I do it from time to time, but I'm also ready to get back to that working environment, having the team around.
Yeah.
And just being able to walk down the hall and stick your head in an office. And
yeah. It's interesting because many of the people who I coach who are looking for new opportunities are looking for in-person roles. Now, maybe not completely in person. They like the flexibility still. But recognizing also that some jobs don't allow for that flexibility. And so I've always had a very big compassionate heart for those who couldn't. I mean, we talk about all the caregivers in your communities. It's a perfect example of they don't get the choice to work from home. And so how do we nurture them in a way that they can still have some flexibility in their lives too? And the world of work is changing. Where we work, how we work, how people make money fascinates me. So I think also just shifting a little bit, but staying on top of what those new trends are to understand, how are people making money in the gig economy? Is it working for them? Is it not working for them?
Are you seeing that more companies are going back to office settings and bringing people back? Or do you think remote work is here to stay where they're working from home?
My perspective is is hybrid is here to stay, and organizations who are all in with remote, and organizations that are all out. So you're seeing a lot more statements by CEOs and senior level leadership about, if you don't want to work in the office, you don't have to work for us. And they're being that bold. And as a worker, as an employee, we need to also then be bold and say, okay, then I don't fit here. If I want remote, I need to go somewhere that does offer remote scheduling. I think hybrid and just more flexibility in general is honored where it wasn't honored that way in the past.
And that's when hybrid is when they're working at home, or?
So hybrid would be some in the office, some at home. And every organization is different. So you'll see people, I'm hearing terms like 4-1 or 2-3. So 2 in the office, 3 at home, or 1 remote, 4 in the office. It really just depends on the organization. And then I think where the rift is you'll have leaders within organizations that tend to be more flexible with their own teams than what the corporate standard is. And so I think it has to do with the type of work you do and the type of organization you work for. And so as I talk to people who are wanting that flexibility, then we look for organizations that offer that flexibility versus trying to go into an organization that isn't flexible at all and trying to say, well, here's what I need, because most companies will tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
In my line of work, as you just mentioned, where directors have to be in the building and the employees have to be on site, for us upper leadership, that was definitely a factor that drove me, of if we expect all of our people to be at the building with our residents, we need to be at work. So it is about finding what structure works for your organization. That's what it really comes down to. And I do have a few people that work remote just because they're further away.
Oh, sure.
But they will say they like coming in. That being at home in the basement, I got one gal, she's like, I needed to get out of the basement. Thanks.
I know, with the one window that you have. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the people connection is pretty important. Where do you see leadership trending? What trends are you seeing for leaders now today?
I truly am seeing more compassionate leadership and trying to figure out where people's strengths are. So no more one size fits all. Everybody does the same work. One of the interesting things that I'm seeing that's really cool is when you can start to connect people's strengths to the customer's needs. Organizations, I think, are starting to find some of those links. So you have happier employees, happier clients, instead of trying to say, everyone does this job and you do all aspects of that job. Additionally, I think from a leadership perspective, I'm seeing a lot more leaders who are encouraging others to not get more educated necessarily, but go to conferences and bring things back. So bring information back to the organization. I'm seeing more of an openness in that as more millennial leaders and Gen Z leaders start to step into the ranks, because generally speaking, creativity, flexibility, just opportunities for people to bring innovation into organizations is changing. And so I think as that happens, we're seeing people who don't love that creativity move to roles that require them to be more rigid, if that makes sense. I know that was kind of a roundabout way to say it.
Okay. Very interesting. And what are you seeing also as far as length of term that they stay with an organization? Do you see that getting longer? Is it getting shorter? What does that look like in a leadership realm?
generally speaking, the trends are that people are only staying with organizations about 3 to 5 years. 5 years is on the long end. What's happening behind closed doors, though, is as we're interviewing people, I think organizations do like longevity. So when they see someone's been with an organization a little bit longer, the automatic internal response is they're probably going to stay a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. They see the impact of the actions that they took. So, leaders who are leaving roles or organizations after 1 or 2 years, my first question always is, how do you know that was a good decision? And you're going to go make it again at another company. So I think just being really mindful of that.
Very interesting. We have a good mix. I mean, we have people that have been with us long term, really long term. Mm-hmm. Like myself, I'm in year 16, and then we have people that, like you said, it's between that 2 to 5 year range. Is that dynamic different between the different generations?
I think it is generational. I also think that the more we talked about social media a little bit before, mm-hmm. the more people hear that they can make these moves, they're making bolder moves and bolder changes. One of the things that organizations who successfully transition folks in and out of their company, but also promote people from within, also have a really great eye for talent, and they meet people where they're at. So if I know that somebody's goal is to become the next EVP, what I'm going to do is, if I don't have that role available to them, then I, as a leader within the organization, need to grow them the best that I can. They get everything that they need to learn so that they can fly the coop, essentially, and go find something else outside of our organization. Sometimes I think we take retention numbers too seriously. If you want to retain somebody, but it's for all of the wrong reasons,
right?
That's not healthy for your organization, and it's definitely not healthy for them. So if they see their growth trajectory to a certain point, let's help them get there and do it with flying colors and a lot of pride. But when it's time to go, let's not keep them too long, because you start to keep people too long and then they become resentful that there's no other promotional opportunities, when sometimes it is what it is. If there's not a next level, there's not a next level. And that's just a fact. We're not trying to hold anybody back. No. It's truly, you need to move on to something new. So there's a level of, there's that emotional intelligence. It goes back to that. It goes back to that discussion.
So do you work across all different industries?
We do, yes.
So you work from healthcare to manufacturing to
technology, yeah.
All over the place.
All over the place, yep. It really, organizationally, we work really, really hard to help companies understand where not just their top tier talent is, but also the next 2 to 3 levels deep. One of the most significant gaps that I see is that we expect leaders to lead at a really high level, but we haven't groomed them to become great leaders as employees to manager, mm-hmm. and then manager to next level leadership. And so depending on what that next level leadership is, sometimes it's senior manager, sometimes it's a directorship. But you have to grow, and we talked about the mistakes you make, right? And we need people to say, wow, that was really great. But in the next level role, you're going to have to communicate differently. You're going to get different problems. You have to communicate strategy differently. Timing is of the essence. And so it is about helping them understand what they need to do and when they need to do it, and giving them chances before they get the job to do those activities. So if there's a great big change happening in your organization, let's get managers involved in that change management so they understand how these decisions are being made at the top, because then they're going to be able to explain better why those changes are happening versus like, I don't get it either.
Right. I mean, I see that in this industry. You'll see someone who may be a great nurse. Mm-hmm. Just because they're a great nurse may not mean they're just automatically going to be an amazing leader. You got to learn a whole nother leadership skill set. And the expectation that are often put on individuals They may be great at the job they're doing right now. And it's like, oh, let's promote that person. They're so amazing. They're so good at it. There is a level of training that has to go on. And organizations forget that. Mm-hmm. So I can see where your services really could help organizations as far as leadership training. We're always talking about leadership training. And of course, across my desk comes things that we're challenged with, and how many times I see things that we just didn't make the right decision. It's not even intentionally. It's just someone in leadership made a poor decision, and it's a lesson that they have to learn. Mm-hmm. But still, as an organization, we have to now deal with it, whatever that situation is, and then the growing pains that go along with that. And we are always revisiting how we could have avoided that. That's one thing that I see for us as an organization is we talk more about what we could have done better and reflect on it and how we can prevent things from happening going forward. So
I know that adults don't always love role playing, but I think that in very safe situations, we can put more managers in really safe, low impact situations that they can learn the skill so that when they need it during a very important situation or a crisis, that they can then use that skill. And so that is being intentional, but helping the employee understand that I'm putting you in a really vulnerable spot. How would you handle this situation? Tell me your honest opinion. What words would you say? Who would you contact? And if you can run through some of those scenarios and then let them be a part of some of that, it makes the learning curve a little less painful.
Okay. And from your standpoint with what your company does too, and the workforce challenges that are going on today, I'm curious as to where do you see the biggest need? Is it entry level, mid-level management, or high-level management? Because we're also in that era where baby boomers have left the workplace or are leaving, people are retiring. The silver tsunami, we call it, where people are now leaving their jobs and going into retirement. Where do you see the most need for workforce? Is it that entry level, mid-level, or high level?
Oh gosh, it depends on the sources that you have. I think that it is entry level is becoming more and more difficult because there are many rising costs. And so, a $20 an hour job now was I want to, dare I say, like a $7 or $8 job when I was growing up. And so I think understanding the expectations of entry-level employees, what do they want? What do they need? You can find that talent a little bit easier, but I think that they're all hard to find. One of the things that I found is that when I'm doing an executive search, we're looking for a purple unicorn. And if you're looking for a purple unicorn, my question is, what can you teach and what do you have to have? And so in any one of those environments, whether it's early career or it's more tenured leadership, being able to have a training program that allows you to train the things you actually need to train, not just because you don't have the time to or want to train some of the behaviors or some of the industry knowledge that you need someone to have. So I think people are out there. It's just how you market to them and then what you're willing to do in-house to train people. I'm finding more entry-level organizations who need entry-level people. If you do in-house training, it really, really helps with engagement and retention.
Do you encounter individuals that there's an expectation to climb that ladder very, very quickly, whereas I'm in an older generation, you had to do your time, so to speak, and you didn't even think about climbing that ladder till you went through step 1, step 2, step 3. Do you see that where you get individuals now today, the expectation is they go from 1 to 10
Yes.
in a year or two?
Yes. I have a degree, therefore I am a director. I have, I was a camp counselor and I led the camp counselor. So now, ergo, I should lead an entire department with a budget. I do see that. And I think some of that is because if we go back to earlier in our conversation, it really was about what are the expectations that people have? Where do they want to be? Where do they see success? And when you're seeing it all around you, you assume that it's easy to get there. And I say you, I mean in general.
Right.
Yes, I do see that. And I am of the, how do you know unless you've done it or tried it or share your experience? What I do find is there's a level of confidence in transferring their skills. So when I run into people who are like, yes, I'm going to be a director tomorrow, they're usually a little bit more savvy at transferring what they did as an individual contributor to leadership. And that gives them in their mind, whether they've done the work or not, they think they're ready. Yes.
we do encounter that too. So I had to, something that we talk about, but in all fairness, the availability of information now is so much easier than when I was making this journey. I mean, you can go out and watch videos and listen to podcasts, listen to professionals that are working or listening to leaders. And it's just so accessible now that you could be doing your homework every day after work because you want to pursue a certain, whatever that avenue is. Yeah. I love the information. For me, it was starting out, it was reading books. I was in the bookstore all the time buying leadership books. And I look back at it now. It's so funny when I think about some of these books that I read because they're so not, they don't equate to today anymore, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember reading that. Yeah. We don't do that stuff anymore.
Well, at least you recognize it.
Yeah, but that's how I got a lot of my learning done before there was videos and webinars and just there's so much available to absorb now. So you can fast track. I really believe that if you do a lot of study, but you still have to implement it at some point.
Yes.
You can know a lot and going in, and that's where I think I've seen leaders also come in and fail is they think they know so much and then they get there and they don't know how to apply. They may have learned a lot, but now you have to apply all of that.
Right.
And you have to come up with a leadership style that is yours and works for you. And even within my own organization, I see different leaders that I know I can't lead how that person does. And I've got people that I don't know how they do it. Yeah. Their leadership style is just unique to them and it works for them. But if I said that to an employee, I might get a different response because it's all about approach, right? Yeah. And so applying it, there's a lot of information out there, but then you really got to go out and practice it the best that you can.
I think that's why we need to understand who are our rising stars within our organizations and who really wants to get there quickly. So that I also see dark horses who don't even want leadership responsibility, and then you give it to them, and they're incredible at their leadership skills are off the charts. And I think that if we can recognize earlier in the succession plan process, not waiting until we've got someone with all of this knowledge within the organization and now they're retiring and we are like, what do we do? They took on everything because they just knew everything. But knowing who are your rising stars so that you can start to engage them in those conversations more frequently. And I think that people who think they're going to get somewhere really, really quick do have the ambition to get there. They also need a mentor who can humble them a little bit and that they're going to be okay taking that feedback. So as we look at our organizations, who are our mentors within the organization? Who are our tough love type mentors? And who are our cheerleader type mentors? And I'll tell you, I've got lots of mentors and every one of them has almost a different purpose, right? When I know I need to just, pull up my big girl pants, I call certain people to say like, I'm whirling, help me get out of this spin. And so being really, really intentional about internal mentorship, but then external mentorship, I think also helps with some of that.
I agree. You got to have someone that you can call.
Mm-hmm.
And because you can definitely get stuck
Mm-hmm.
as a leader, especially that ruminating thing. You can just get on something and it's like on repeat,
Mm-hmm.
and you can get stuck someplace. So it is important to have conversations and work your way out of it, talk through it.
I think people care so much. I see a lot of that in people who just really care what the outcome is going to be. So they don't want people to be frustrated or mad at them. They just want people to get along. They don't want to put someone else in discomfort. If you have to put someone on a performance plan or talk to them about their performance, those are really hard conversations for people to have. And again, there are books and books and books on how to have challenging conversations and how conflict can be good. But if we don't know how to speak those words and practice those words, then it becomes personal when really it's not.
Yes, I remember being an early leader and avoiding some of those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
If you avoid it, it just gets worse.
Mm-hmm.
You're far better off you see it, address it, move on. See it, address it, move on.
Yeah. I do want to add something to that because I think there is something just about the school of hard knocks. Like no matter how much you mentor somebody or how much you help them, sometimes they need to fall hard enough and fast enough to be able to say, oh, wow, that's what that felt like. Because if there's always a safety net,
mm-hmm.
then they don't really learn. And in some cases, it is leaving an organization and sometimes coming back like, oh, I just know more. We call those boomerangs. Mm-hmm. Those are the people who leave us to go do something else or gain a new skill and then come back to us because now they have recognized they're in a different place with their leadership, with their career, whatever the case may be. And so I used to not really believe in boomerangs. I was like, oh, once you're gone, you're gone. Early on in my career, I was like, goodbye.
Well, that's what it was. I think, that's just, a lot of times you didn't see people get hired back right. then. Because I agree. I think we've become a lot more accepting of boomerangs too. Do I want to say it's a trend? I think it is. Like people are drawn to the grass might be greener over there.
Yes.
And they got to go try it out. But then they recognize, mm-hmm. hey, it was pretty good over there and I want to come back. Yeah. And so we're definitely a lot more open to that. The ramp up tends to be a lot easier for someone who's been with us before.
Yeah.
And they know our culture, they know how we work, and there's a lot of benefits in that. So
there's a concept that I learned a couple of years ago called intrapreneurship. And I had never heard it before. When we think about entrepreneurs, we think about people who are creative and risk takers and innovative, right?
Mm-hmm.
Entrepreneurship is the very same thing, but internal within an organization. And by definition, it truly is people who are allowed the opportunity to innovate and take action. But I take it a step further. If we can all take our careers and look at them as if they are our own little mini business, what might we do differently? What conversations might we have because we have skin in the game? So entrepreneurship can be with any role within the organization. And that concept tends to sit with people like I might not be able to control the full strategy of the mm-hmm. organization, but I can control my slice of heaven. I can control how my team interacts with one another. I can control how I respond. I can control what I might need to ask for from my leader that they don't even know I need, instead of assuming they know what I need. And so conceptually, I think that really helps people understand that they can make an impact where they're at versus having to boomerang out and come back in.
Interesting. How about people that maybe want to make a career change? Maybe we've got someone listening and, hey, I've been doing this for the last how many years, and now I want to do something totally different. Where do they even start?
Ooh, that's a magical question. I get really excited about this one because we reserve the right to reinvent ourselves at any point in our lives. The first place to start is understanding what is it that you really want? What are your goals for the next 1, 3, and 5 years? Sounds pretty simple, but there's a model I use called the GIVES model, and it's your goals, your interests, your values, your education, and your skills.
Oh, I love this. Okay.
So if you can lay out what your goals are, you might have a goal to buy a lake property, I don't know, buy a fancy car, have a 4-day work week, like whatever your goals might be for you and your family. Write those things down first, and then your interests, because what you want to do is find a new role that's tangentially related to your interests. That's where you're going to be happy. People sometimes say, and pardon me that I don't completely buy into the do something you love and you'll never work a day in your life, because you do. I love what I do, but I also work really hard, right?
Right.
But if you can find something that's tangentially related to that, you then are at least in the same realm of something that you care about. And then knowing and understanding what your education and what your skills are. We don't always need to go chase more education. I oftentimes don't recommend it unless it's an absolute requirement, as, the price of admission to get an interview. And then what skills do you really have? And so when you can look at that big picture, you can see the threads that tie between those, and then you work your way backwards. Too often we're like, I want to make a job change. And then they go to Indeed or LinkedIn and you start Googling similar things to what you know. And we don't want to do that. We want to give your brain a chance to be creative and think about what could be versus just another version of what is today.
How are employers, with your experience, how are they looking at that education or degree now versus 10 years ago? Are they more open at looking at individuals that have experience in leadership or leading organization versus someone who may not have a degree? How is that looked at today?
It depends. It depends on how traditional the organization is. I have seen and worked with organizations that tend to be like, this is the way we do it. And if we change it now, what do we do for all the people that we did require those things for?
Sure.
But I am seeing a shift. It's a slow shift in, is a degree what makes the difference, or is it experience? And it's a little bit of both. And I would say the tide is changing, but we're not quite there yet. So on almost all job descriptions that leaders write, I still see you need a master's degree or you need a bachelor's degree. The question is, for what? Like, what is your organization viewing that bachelor's degree as? Is it because of the actual education? Is it because of the teamwork and the project work? Is it resilience that you can get through something that long? What is it that you actually need that degree for? In some industries, things are just required because you need licensure and things of that nature, which is very critical. But I would argue that my personal opinion and where I hope the trend continues to go is experiences. The difference between experience and a degree, though, or things that you can write down, a certification that you can write down on your resume, is that one is factual and it's tangible. I can audit it. I can check it. I can't audit or check your experience. You're as good to me as your interviewing skills.
Right.
And so you're always taking a chance with those other things. And that's why I think it's hard to let that go sometimes.
Yeah, I was talking to my grandson, he is a junior in high school. He's going to be a senior this year, about what he's going to do. And it's really interesting to hear young people, because they know they have an option. And he's between going in the trades versus going to college. And he's on the honor roll. Like, he could easily go into college. But he's looking at going into the trades and because he's like, it pretty much pays the same. And I can just be learning on the job for the first however many years while he's in trade school. So he goes out and he works. So he's looking at being an electrician, which is a great field.
Yeah.
And he would be an apprentice. And then it's so many hours of trade school. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
As an option versus... it's interesting because 10 years ago, you would have been like, oh, you got to go to college.
Absolutely. 4-year degree was the thing to get.
Yeah.
I think
so things
sometimes
are changing. Yeah.
They are changing. And I'm glad that they're changing because, I look at my husband, who was a technician at a low voltage company and worked his way up to a vice president role. And he never in a million years did he see himself as a vice president, but he had opportunities, and then he showed them what he was capable of. So even to not, like, we don't want to minimize any of the trades because they're incredibly lucrative financially.
Yes.
But also you can take still business classes and learn some of that stuff. You can learn all the finances and all of that. You can take that as a 2-year degree and have it under your belt, or even just learn as you go within the industry. So that goes back to, like, if he becomes an electrician, or you become a plumber or a pipe fitter, or whatever you become, that skill set allows you to then lead those people. But again, a different industry, right? You wouldn't expect someone like me to lead nurses as a frontline manager. I might not be so successful because I could probably relate to them, but I haven't done the work, right? And so that's also 2 schools of thought. If you haven't done the work, how do you lead the work?
Right.
But I also led, $60 million businesses and I didn't know every in and out of every job that everyone did. So
yeah, nursing are my professionals that are leaders and nurses. It's 2 different worlds, honestly. They go to school and they learn how to be nurses, but then becoming leaders, it's really amazing to see them grow into leadership, because you're really taught to be a caregiver and a provider, but then to be a leader, that's a totally different thing.
It is. And kudos to you for engaging in those conversations, because I think people, especially in fields like nursing, as a nurse, I want to know that my leader really understands what I've been through. They've been, in the trenches in some cases, and understand what's not spoken, what I can't articulate to you. That's incredible.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate you joining me on this. And we're going to wrap up today. I want to make sure that I mention your website on here so that people know how to find you. You're also on LinkedIn. So it's myempoweredcareer.com is your website. And Stephanie Freiboth on LinkedIn, and your last name is spelled Freiboth, for those of you that want to reach out to Stephanie. And we said we'd talk about it, and we did. Thank you for joining us today, and it was so great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming.
What an incredible conversation. I appreciate you so much.
All right, thank you.